Hi, I'm Joshua Crocker.
And I'm Kevin Liston.
And this is Kicking for a Living,
a podcast about martial arts and business from two martial arts instructors.
I'm excited to be back for Season 2 of our podcast.
Yeah, it was a lot longer than I think we anticipated with everything we had going on. But it's good to get back in, good to be recording another episode. It'd be really good to kind of get back in the swing and recap some of those things.
Yeah, I know before we left last time, I said we were going to be gone a short while, and it's turned into about 6 months.
That could be considered short, depending upon how you look at it.
But the things going on when we left our podcast off last time, where we were about to move and you were about to go on vacation. So before we get into the topic of today's episode, how did your trip go?
Oh, it was great. It was beautiful. We went over to the Smoky Mountains, but we had many stops along the way. So it was kind of a national parks tour almost on the East Coast. And so we left here from Oklahoma, and by the end of it, we had been to a national park or some kind of national park or something, or reservation or whatever, in every state that we went into. I think it was a total of 7. And that was really neat to see. There was one scary incident that is somewhat related to being a martial arts instructor that did happen that I want to kind of briefly talk about. But otherwise, it was wonderful. Did you hear about? I'm pretty sure you heard about that.
I'm sure at some point I heard about this story, but it has been a minute now.
Yeah. So at one of the cabins we were staying in, which was back in the middle of, there were other cabins around, but it was out in the middle of a wooded area, kind of gravel one-way roads, and we had the fire alarm, the smoke detector, actually, the battery was going out. And those of you who know, when the battery goes out, it starts beeping in the middle of the night. Beep, beep, and that was annoying. So we called the place that we were staying at and told them about it, and they said, great, we'll send someone out to check. Well, we were gone all day. We were leaving, going out. We were doing some hikes. We went to a place called Anakeesta, which was really neat. And then we get back, and it looks like no one ever came by. And so we're like, well, I guess they didn't make it out to fix the smoke detectors tonight. Okay, it is what it is. Well, at about 10:45, almost 11 p.m., this unmarked, windowless white van starts driving up the long driveway to our cabin. Of course, we are like, what in the world? They stop right in front of us, knock on the door. At 11 o'clock at night. Oh, they say they were there because they got a call to check the locks. Well, number one, that is not what we called about. We called about a smoke alarm, not the locks. And it's 10:45 p.m., well past anyone's work day, especially to be coming out and checking something that we didn't call about. They clearly wanted us to open the door. Lo and behold, I'm over there, literally I grab a kitchen knife, because I'm like, no, there's no good reason for this person to be here. This was Bridget who was talking to them while I was getting that, and then I come out and I say, no, we're all good, thank you. And of course, upon hearing a man's voice, they say, oh, sorry, and they leave. I was fully prepared to stop whatever this person's intent was. I can tell you that if someone comes to your house that late at night or you're on vacation, do not open the door. We didn't open the door. We kept it locked. And nothing bad happened. They left. We called the place. They were as confused as we were as to why someone would have been out that late at night. But
that's
definitely
a story that takes, just knowing your surroundings, awareness, and half the self-defense is just being cautious.
Well, and just, I think it was more important that, this idea of mentally prepared ourselves and knowing, no, you're here to fix the lock. I will deal with a broken lock rather than let a stranger in an unmarked van into wherever I'm staying that late at night. There's no reason that they would have been there. No good reason that person should have been there. And the funny thing is, had he said, hey, I'm here to check on the smoke detectors, then at least it would have clicked that they knew what we called about but it was not even related to that. This could have been someone who does this. This is just what they do. They go to these like Airbnbs or these cabins that people rent out and say, "Hey, I'm here to fix the lock," out in the middle of nowhere. And it's a scary, scary thought. And I don't want to. The vacation was great. The vacation was a lot of fun. It's just this one weird instance. We didn't continue staying at that place. We left the next day, regardless. But it definitely was the only one like damper. The rest of it was great. We did river rafting. We did zip lining. We did a lot of hiking. We saw some gorgeous locations. But I feel from a martial arts perspective, awareness, knowing your surroundings, like you said, it was important for me to bring up because it was scary.
And I think a good takeaway is when you're going on vacation, make sure you know what a plan is. When you're at home, you kind of know your surroundings in your house.
Yes.
You know which way to escape from, where any weapons would be. But when you're on vacation, make sure you still know, well, if something happens, something goes down, how am I going to stay safe?
Right. We're actually going to be doing a seminar on that very topic coming up shortly.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be doing the seminar before or after this episode release. It'll probably be happening around the time this comes out. So
right.
If you went to that or it's about to happen and you're going, hope that is also a good learning experience for you guys on these topics.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I saw all the pictures from your trip. Looks like a lot of fun. Looked a lot of beautiful locations.
Yes, yeah, it was wonderful. It was great. Man. Ironically, the best part of the trip, one of the most gorgeous parks we went to, was one that we found on the road. Bridget planned all these places out, but left a little bit open if we wanted to switch it up. And one of them, I found Old Stone Fort. Plug for y'all. I found it on the road. I was like, hey, let's stop there. It's on the way. It's not too far off. That was such a great little find. Had some beautiful waterfalls and rapids. Oh, that was a gorgeous, gorgeous park. And it wasn't even one of the planned ones. The planned ones were great too, but sometimes those things that you just find are some of the best. Really cool.
So the other big thing that was going on in the last few months is we moved to our new dojo. We talked about this in our last couple episodes, that we were getting ready to move, and we are now moved in. Settled into. We've been here for a few months now, and we wanted to kind of recap our move stories over that weekend where we were getting everything ready and some of the things that have happened since. Just kind of update you guys on some of the behind the scenes of what happened.
And I think this is also good for if anyone is a martial arts instructor or you're thinking about opening up your own school. This might be good to listen to for some of the pitfalls or things that you might encounter when moving into your new space. Because this is actually the second time we moved into one space. Now we moved into a bigger. So we've done, and we expanded once before that. So we've, I guess, got some experience in opening or moving to a new location. So this would be a good recap. It'd also be good to kind of go through the fun, quirky moments that have come up.
And the first thing, so we moved into the building on Tower Drive at the start of 2015, over nine years ago now. And I was young back then, but I remember walking into that small space and seeing it just empty. It was just, the concrete floor. You had the giant pole in the middle, and it was pretty empty. And it was interesting getting to see it like that again. By the time we were done moving, kind of walking through the last couple times, and there was nothing left.
Right, because I do remember you always, when you see a spot that's empty, how much bigger it looks. We were busting at the seams on our mat space, and then you look at it as a big empty space, and we're like, there's no way this was where our mat was. This looks way bigger now that it's empty, but that kind of just the way perception messes with you a little bit.
And we were fitting so much into the same spot. I think that was part of it. Is even if the space looked big, there was so much that had to be in that one space.
Right.
And I was going through even some pictures of some of our first classes, and the mats used to be half the size they wound up being by the time we did move at the old place. They were very small.
We expanded before we moved into the new place, which we'll talk about. we expanded the mats at our original facility 2 times after initially installing them. So we had our mats, we expanded those, then we took over the space next door and expanded them again. So we expanded the mats several times. Gosh, I hope we don't have to expand the mats here. I don't think we can.
So to give you kind of the timeline of moving weekends, so before we got to our big moving weekend, we were doing a little work here and there in our new building just to get it ready, paint and everything, getting the walls torn down, working with our contractors. But then it was Thursday, I believe, that week. So we had our last classes Wednesday night. We closed from Thursday through Sunday, and we had our first day of moving. We had some of our black belts helping us, our instructors, and then a few other dojo family and friends there. I believe on the first day, I got the pictures here we can look at. Were we moving out the mats yet? Let's see here.
I don't think we were moving the mats on the first day.
That looks like day 2. So yeah, day 1, it was a lot of... Looks like we were actually just doing more work in the new building on day 1. Just getting a lot of the tedious stuff done. I mean, there were doors that weren't hanged up. There were,
Right, we had to put the doors in. That's right, we couldn't get the mats because they had removed all these walls and knocked down walls, so we'd have mat space. Well, that left little bumps and holes in the ground that we had to do, like filler cement over and things like that. Let that dry before we could put the mats on top of it. So
yeah, day 1 was a lot of the tedious work. I do know that we tried to get the mats down on our second side because something we'll get back to in a minute is we had a testing we had to do this weekend. So there was a lot of back and forth of, well, where are we going to do the testing? Are we going to do it at the
old place or the
new place? So we had to get at least some of the mats set so we could be ready for this testing.
Also, if any of you are listening that helped out, big shout out to anyone who helped us move our thing. I'm looking through pictures, I'm remembering all the people that helped us. So they were immensely helpful. I'm so grateful for our Integrity family that we have that helped us out with all this. So big shout out to you all if you're listening. Thank you.
We had just as many people there who were not, part of the staff helping as we did staff members.
Yeah.
People who took time off work or took time out of their day just to be there and help us. So
potentially more.
Very, very appreciated. Then, day 1, and then I remember we finished day 1, we went back to the old place and we were starting to just box up everything. And for anyone, I mean, even if you just moved houses, you know that when you're moving, there's a lot of just small things that have to be packed. The big stuff is always the stuff you need a lot of help with. Then you got to get the small stuff and keep it in the right spot so you don't lose it. So it was a bit of that when we got back, packing up all the bags, packing up all the office equipment that night. And then we finished with some interviews. I've got several hours worth of interviews from the black belts and instructors of their kind of thoughts on the move and memories from Tower Drive. None of them have been released yet. I'm saving them for a future project, but we got each a chance to kind of talk through, what the old dojo meant for us. So we won't get into that too much today because I've got that footage elsewhere, but it was nice to kind of take that moment at the end of our first day and kind of talk about what this meant for us as people who've been doing this, been at this same building, been a second home since 2015.
And I mean, and you got a lot of pictures, a lot of video. I'm really excited, by the way, for what you're working on. I don't know, spoiler alert or anything, but it's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I think that'd be real neat. And kind of looking back through pictures, the mats. So the mats are almost going to be a huge topic in and of itself. Yeah, that's the primary thing of a martial arts school.
We started Friday morning with mats, and I'm trying to remember back to that weekend because here in Oklahoma you never know what the weather's going to throw at you. So there was a chance we could have rain, and we didn't want to be moving the mats in the rain. I think we got lucky and it was no more than just a lot of wind that we had to deal with.
Yeah, maybe very light drizzle early in the morning, but it had stopped by the time we even got up to the school.
So yeah, when we're moving the mats, at first, I mean, there's a lot of goop on the mats because we had to, what was it? We had to glue them down at the old place. Isn't that right?
So what it was when we expanded the mats, we expanded over some of what was carpeted. And so bordering the mats is always tricky. And knowing that we were going to move, I was trying to avoid putting a big wooden plank and drill into the floor that's going to destroy the carpet, destroy the concrete. And so what we did was I basically I put a piece of Velcro strip on the edge of the mats and Velcroed it to the carpet. And it stuck really well. That actually worked really well. The Velcro didn't move. The mats, however, did not adhere to the Velcro strip, and so the mats were actually moving. The Velcro stayed. The mats actually slid on top of it. And so we ended up just cleaning all that adhesive off. And it was only on the edge strip, not the whole mat. That was kind of my temporary fix, so I didn't have to border it. But yeah, we had to clean all that goop off.
Yeah, I remember that being a chore. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But then just carrying out all the mats, it was. There's a lot of these activities getting into it where I always felt bad because of our black belts, am the least physically capable. Me and Miss Deb, so we're the two who often are helping with the other small tasks while we let all the bigger guys move stuff. I helped a little bit with moving the mats into the truck and kind of stacking them.
Well, I don't. We had enough people, and I don't want you to feel that because remember we only had so many doors we could go through anyway. So it's not
I was starting to feel sick on Friday. I remember I got sick Friday weekend or moving weekend. It was I started feeling bad this day. I think it was Saturday. We were up here again, and I was a mess that day. But I was up there a lot of the time, again, recording stuff, taking pictures. My number one job moving weekend was just to record everything and to have a memory sake of it.
Which, again, like I was saying, if you are opening, that is one thing that now that we've done this a second time, that I wish we would have dedicated time to the first time. We don't have a lot of pictures of us opening our dojo initially because it wasn't something we thought of. We didn't think how important it was to get pictures to document these things, to kind of and the second time that it seems like it might not be, but that's important. It's good to remember those things, kind of help you see the pitfalls of, and things of that nature. Which, speaking of the mats, one thing that I did want to bring up while we're on that topic was picking up the remainder of the mats from the warehouse at Century. So we had ordered a bunch of mats from Century and Borders, and I have a truck. I have a pickup truck, and I went up there to pick them up. My plan was to pick it up in 2 separate trips because I only had one truck. And so I thought, okay, maybe I could pick up all the borders, the wooden borders that we're going to frame our mats in one day, and then I could hitch up a trailer and get the mats the next day. No. When you went to pick up an order from the warehouse, and this makes sense, I'm not faulting anyone, they say we can't divide the order up unless it's 2 separate orders. So we had to load up thousands of pounds worth of mats onto my truck. So much that they got a forklift. We're lifting the mats to slide them into my truck, but the forklift wasn't long enough to get all the way under the mats that the mats ended up snapping the pallet that they were on and just falling over, some of which actually landed on the bed of my truck to no damage. They just kind of slowly slid off. And then we had to manually load them up. I get in my truck. I can feel the pressure. I see my tire light coming on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get stranded on the way back in the middle of the road. I didn't. I made it back, but it made my truck shocks go through the ringer a little bit.
I wasn't there for that one. I think Dan was with you, right?
Yeah, he helped me unload them. I had to call up Dan and say, hey, I've got a whole bunch of mats. Can someone help me unload these? Because one at a time, it would have taken me a long time to unload all those.
I remember we were all back at, one of the buildings being like, so what's the deal with the mats? Like,
Yeah.
and we're all like trying to get in touch with you and Dan, figure out what's going on, and we're like confused at what are they doing?
Oh boy. So, new school owners, I recommend if you cannot have your mats delivered, luckily it's only about a 30-minute drive for us to the warehouse at Century. We're very fortunate that it's so close. If you're having them delivered, great, have them delivered. If you're picking them up, make sure you have some kind of trailer or something to load them on, because, oh boy.
Because we only rented the U-Haul for Friday when we were moving the mats. So a lot of the smaller stuff we were moving, like I mentioned, that was just back and forth in people's cars and people's vehicles. Load up boxes, drive down the road, drive back.
Right. And these were picking up additional mats. I did that a few days before and then just dropped them off. So all the mats were already there. But
that's right.
Yeah. That was a fun experience.
So then other stuff. So on Friday it was that was a lot more of just getting the mats in place, finishing up some more things. It's really small things that once you're in the building are going to go unnoticed, like putting down a trim. But that took like an hour of time. Miss Deb and Miss Josie were up here just putting down the trim.
Yeah, the trim on the side of the walls.
Everyone looks at the mats, but there are a lot of other things, that are important. And then once we have the mats down, bordering them. So if you look at the mats,
Yep.
Now that we're in a more permanent home, we can actually border the mats so they don't move as much. Because in our old location, after the end of every night, the mats would have been moved around and you had to reset them. Mm-hmm. So having a way to keep them in place is very good.
And knowing that if you're going to border them, the plan is to border them once. So if you are going into a facility and you think one day you might expand the mats, don't border them that way. Try to find another way to keep them in place if you know it's going to be temporary. Because trying to pull those borders up is rough. But then other things, so we have, the new place is not carpeted. We've looked at getting some carpet. That's a future goal. We want to carpet some of it. But the primary place is not carpeted. The wax was coming up on the floor. So I remember hours just getting this like adhesive, anti-adhesive things to pour on there, mop down, and scrape to get that wax off. Just those little things that, again, like you said,
there's just so many small things. And again, another reason why having a dozen people, working was helped things get done. Because we already, there were moments where it felt like we were running low on time, getting this move done. But,
always.
But having that many people, we were still able to be open by the next week. I think the bigger issue is just getting like the permits and everything finalized.
The red tape.
Yeah. I think, so to skip ahead a bit, that Monday was Halloween. I can't remember what the deal was with that we weren't going to be open Halloween, or there was a whole discussion about it. Regardless, we ended up just having kind of a fun Halloween night, stop in, play some games, see the new place.
Right. So they had come and they had done the inspections. And a shout out here, our contractors, most of the time people complain about contract labor. Our contractors were actually really, really great. One of them we know personally. He himself is a martial artist and a firefighter. Really, really nice guy. So our contractors were awesome. The guy that came inspection said, well, before you can open, you need X, Y, and Z done. So we didn't get the permit when we wanted, but our contractors were nice enough and they knew enough connections. They actually called and were able to get us a temporary occupancy while they fixed the things that needed fixed. We got the inspection. It was all turned out great.
Yeah, they were great.
So luckily that allowed us to kind of do that fun night, because at this point we were going on not having classes for almost 2 weeks, which when you think about it doesn't seem like a long time, but when you have when you teach a class every day and when you see these students...
For 2 weeks, do you mean?
Oh, sorry. I mean, we didn't have classes for 2 days, and it was getting longer and longer that we wanted to do something, so we weren't going to have classes for that extended period of time.
And I was mistaken a bit with the timeline. Actually, Halloween was that Tuesday, and the whole thing was we didn't want to open for our first day on Tuesday.
Right.
So when we weren't ready on Monday, we were like, well, let's just do something fun on Tuesday.
Yes.
So it ended up being, I think, 5 days. 5 days, 6 days. I don't know. That's a lot of math. 5 days that we ended up having to close. But by those last couple, we were able to have people in at least to see the new place.
Yeah.
We just didn't have our first class till that Wednesday.
Yeah, so it was a week, and we didn't want to go on 2 weeks to get back in, which is a short turnaround in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, no, it all went pretty fast. We were ready. We were doing a lot of getting ready leading up to it so we could get all this done that weekend. But it was an exhausting weekend. That was one of those events or things going on that leaves you very tired. I think like a big testing week is kind of that same feel. Mm-hmm. We've had other events in the past where even like an all-day Saturday event like the Integra Olympics, we talked about that in our last episode of season 1. Like events like that wear you out a little bit just because it's not in your routine, it's a lot of work, and you have a short period of time to get it done.
Right. I remember doing those, and I remember the painting and things of that nature, and I have this bad habit of, and this is a me, when I see a task and I'm in the zone, I don't want to leave the zone because I know it's hard to get back in. And so I have to oftentimes have, Dan or Bridget be like, you got to stop, because otherwise I'll just keep on going and exhaust myself. Which to a degree was good. It helps us get stuff done, but at the same time, then I'm just more pooped the next day. And we needed help the next day too. And this is also kind of going and looking at these pictures. We were talking about this before the episode, and that is, we were comparing this to our kind of wish list that we created of what we would want in our ideal dojo. And since we moved, we got some of these things. Others we maybe didn't get or haven't gotten yet. But, I mean, going through this list, like, we were able to get some of these actually knocked out.
I remember Deb had a lot of, so that was the episode we had Deb on for. She had a lot of, like, training-related things she wanted. And I'm seeing a lot of those are the things we still don't have implemented. We have some of those things.
Yeah, we have the heavy hanging bags. The problem was just because of the layout of the building, we don't have an appropriate wall to anchor them on.
So we got really all the mat space we talked about, because we talked about a really big mat space and then 2 maybe smaller mat spaces, which, as far as mat space goes, I have no complaints about the new building. That has been not even something we've had to worry about.
The only thing I would say is on the secondary mat space, the facility next door took a little more space than we were anticipating them taking, and so that hurt some of our mat space just because the mats we had in there were ordered to fit, and we had to cut it down because of that.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So we did lose a little bit what our initial intent was, not a horrible amount, but
it won't stop students, though, from only working on the edge of the mat, though. Doesn't matter how much room you have. They will stand at the very edge of the mat space to train.
Somehow they're always on the edge. And
especially if it's takedown week.
Yep. Yeah.
We have a crash pad leaning up against the wall in our second space.
And we're looking at getting a second one, too.
Those are great. We don't really hit them, but we use them to fall on. And that's been a kind of an extra tool we've had recently that's been very, very nice to use.
Right.
When you get taken down so much during the week, it's nice to have a soft landing sometimes.
We also talked about, I know Deb mentioned pads on the walls, which that's still a possibility. Like that we could do on either mat space, really. Oh, I was going to say, kind of looking here, we have more bags. We actually just got some more Wave Masters, targets, pads, mitts. We do have those.
Well, a lot of the stuff we did get, I mean, looking at this list, we have a kitchen, we have a studio room, we've got all this stuff, and some of the things we don't have quite yet we're adding in the next few months. We've had like one project at a time to work on. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest ones we don't have is you had adequate parking, and our parking is not terrible by any means. But there has been a few times where it has been a bit of a concern and a bit of a holdback.
Yes. With the parking lot next door, I think we'll be fine. I think we just need to make sure we can use that. Yeah, I think that's a thing that a lot of that Bridget was very concerned with, which is why I brought it up. But a lot of martial arts instructors and school owners don't consider. They look at the space, they look at do they have the mats, and they don't consider parking.
I think this is something
for
martial arts business owners, a lot of business owners you can forget about because, well, where are you during your busiest hours? Inside. You don't always see how busy that parking lot gets, and you're not the one who has to deal with, the traffic in the parking lot at your busy hours, because we get there early and we leave late. The parking lot's empty when we arrive and leave most days.
Right.
But for the students who are there during your busy hours, it's a different story.
Well, and I also want to shout out to, not shout out necessarily, but give this information that if you are opening up a school or you have a school or you're moving or anything like that, think about if you're a martial arts school, you have kids. Those kids are going to be leaving and going out into a parking lot. How busy is that parking lot? How many cars are moving in and out? If it's big enough and there's a lot more room, that for just general safety. And so I think the outside parking is a much bigger concern than people give it credit, especially in a facility of any kind that has children. That could be a dance studio or anything like that too. And so that was one thing when we moved that was a big consideration. And yet we're in the studio room right now.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I meant to say this at the top of the episode, but this is our first episode we're actually recording at the dojo. Now that we're in our new space, we've got an area where we can record our podcast. So hopefully that also means we can get more guests on this season as well, now that we kind of have a designated area to record some of this stuff.
Right. Some of the things I didn't get my shower.
Don't have a shower.
That's okay. We don't always get what we want,
we don't have a projector. I don't even remember who added that one. We do have proper first aid, though. I got proper first aid in the notes, so we had to take out a mortgage for that one, but look at the amount of nosebleeds we've had recently.
Yeah, ironically, I don't want to scare anybody. They're not from anyone taking a hit.
No, it's the time of year where...
It's that time of year.
And we have a few students who are just very prone to nosebleeds, and it happens all the time.
No, this is also the time of year where students are injuring themselves outside of the dojo.
That too.
We did get lockers and shelves. We added, in fact, some of our, again, big shout out to that family. I won't say names just in case, but they know who they are. Awesome family. They made us some shelves for us and helped us take off the doors to the lockers so they're open for shoes and things like that very quickly. So thank you all for that. That was awesome. We have appropriate places for bags and adequate items and things of that nature now.
I have a note in here that I wanted outside amenities, so an area we could work outside. We don't really have that. We got a little grassy area outside. It's not very big. But if, talking to maybe some of our high-ranked students here, you guys want to do another training day outside, it's getting nicer out, let me know. Think of some drills we could work on outside in the parking lot. You will have to, punch a car away maybe, because like we said, parking lots, you might get run over. But I think that's something I wish we did more, is more training outside, because weeks like this one that we're recording on, it's been very nice outside, and getting a chance to practice martial arts, outdoors is always a very fun and unique experience. So I'm going to take a quick second just to, whether it's an event, whether it's a, training day, whether it's just normal class, find some time to, practice outside. Whether you're at home and you need to, practice your stuff a bit, you got a test coming up, whatever, go outside for a bit. It gives you a different setting, which is very nice.
I agree, especially now that the weather's about to get nicer on those. So, kind of looking at some of the other things, 3 points of entry. Now, that's one that we have 2. And I would have very much liked to have 3, but just the way the building was structured, we ended up with 2. They're both very easy to and accessible, though, because we're in a pretty open area, which is good. We have high ceilings. We do have AC, signage, restrooms, of course. Cleaning supplies. We got a water fountain. That actually turned out to be a bigger deal than I thought it was.
Oh, yeah.
City code, we had to get a
the
whole
legalities of it.
Yeah, a whole new water fountain. Which is fine. It's great. It's also got a bottle filler in there with a little tracker that says, this is how many. We've already saved over 900 bottles.
Yeah, I never used the water fountain part, but I used the bottle fill regularly, so that's nice.
So what would you say, because now we've kind of looked at, we actually ended up, at first I didn't think we got as much stuff as we wanted, but when I look at that, we actually did. We actually got quite a bit of the stuff that was on our wish list here. So what would you say is your most memorable experience about that move? The thing that sticks out the most, or maybe a funny story you have?
Let's see. I just looking back at this, one thing I'll say, I wouldn't say this is the most memorable experience, but I did want to talk about before we leave, is we did have that testing on Friday night, and it was our first thing we did at the new dojo. So we ended up getting the mats down in the second area, and we had all the students come in. We had about, looks like 4 little ninjas, and another 4 or 5 basic students testing that weekend. So we got to bring them in there. They got to help us test out the new mats. And I remember after a long weekend of moving, just getting back into training mode. That was a nice little break in all the carrying stuff and setting stuff up. But I think my favorite memory was perhaps when we went back to some of the times we went back to the old dojo and got to kind of reminisce on, the past years. And, it is, for us, a second home at the dojo. And just like, when you move out of a home you've been in 8 years, there's a lot of memories that come with that. So just taking a time to kind of walk through the now empty dojo, think back on all that, talk about some of the experiences we had. I think that's the one that kind of keeps jumping back at me.
Going back, I remember that because you had recorded some things there and had specific questions as we were kind of looking through. Hey, I remember that hole in the wall from when someone's heel bumped into it. And
I remember we actually went back a month later because we had that building for another month after we moved, because we did one more last video at the old place.
Right.
When we turned in our keys.
Final walkthrough. Yeah.
I do remember at that point, though, not feeling as bittersweet. Because I was never sad to move. I mean, we were all very excited about the new place, but there's a level of, you'll miss what you used to have. But I remember after a month going back and not feeling that as much because, we had already started to settle into our new place and it had quickly felt like home over here at our new building. Mm-hmm. So going back a month later, already those feelings, had kind of dispersed a little bit.
Well, and I think that is because I agree, but I think that happens kind of a little tender moment here is because you realize that, especially for martial artists, one of the hardest things about our job is that as much as from a business perspective, you don't want to get emotionally invested, we can't help it. And you quickly realize that your family within the dojo is the people, not the place. And so once we got back into classes and started training with the same people that we had before and our students again, it quickly felt like home, like you said, very easily, because it was more about who than where. You know, it's really interesting because I didn't connect this, and this literally only happened at the time of this recording 2 days ago. So this only happened a few days ago. There was a gentleman that came into our school. He was invited by another one of the people I trained with to come and try out the jiu-jitsu class. And he had trained in another state. I think it was Florida. And he had trained at an academy there in jiu-jitsu. He had moved to Oklahoma, tried out a few places. And this stuck out to me because you just brought it up. He said the thing he missed the most was he liked the community and the camaraderie of his original place. And when he moved back to Oklahoma, he didn't find that at the first few places he trained at. He felt like they were, oh, you're not in our family. You're not part of our clique. He said he'd go as a blue belt, roll with someone else, and if he tapped them, they immediately viewed him as an enemy because he didn't initially train there. But that community, that family feeling is what he really liked. And he was so thankful for us. He said, you guys made me feel very welcome. You know, I felt like you guys have a really good community here and things like that. So thank you for the invite. And that's important. It's important to have that kind of environment. You know, we try to be very welcoming here. And when we move to a new place, we intentionally try to pick colors that are welcoming, that don't overpower or overwhelm, but are not boring and dull. We have AC units on because parents are watching. They can't be sweating all day. I know some people will say, and I get it, it's a gym, work, sweat, hard. Yes, for your hardcore athletes. But if a parent is watching their kid, you need to make that parent feel comfortable and welcome there so they keep coming in and things. And so that family, you develop those bonds very quickly with people. And so I think, just reiterating, that's why even as bittersweet as it is to leave the old place, the people are still the same. And we were very fortunate that we did not have people quit as part of the move. We didn't move very far. We only moved like a mile down the road, but still.
Yeah, we for the months leading up to it, we were talking about that no matter where we moved to, we estimated people would leave. At least a few, and
yeah, at least
even if that wasn't their actual reason for leaving, and they just it was more of a right time for them to leave.
Right, they were
but
already.
Even then, I don't think we lost a lot of people for that reason at all.
No.
One thing we didn't get to talk about that I was planning on discussing more in depth was not only did we move, but we kind of had a curriculum restructure as well.
Maybe that's a whole other episode.
So, like. We found the move as a good time kind of to restart some other stuff, both on the business side, both on the class side, the curriculum side. So there was, not only were we moving places, but we used these last few months as a chance to roll out a lot of other new things at the dojo. So it is exciting. This is a new phase, a new era here at Integrity.
Yes, well... And that's part of the reason it took us so long to get back into our podcast is we decided, hey, we're going to move locations first of the year. You know, we started in October. If you're going to make changes, make it a big change and make it all at once. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I was like, we're at a new facility. We've got 2 mats. This changes our schedule up completely. Now's as good a time as any to roll out a new curriculum structure and class structure and path structure and things of that. So lots of stuff going on.
But I will say to any students out there listening, or parents, or anyone who trains with us, and you've been here the last few months, you were at our old building. Have you even realized that we made changes besides the fact of us telling you we have? Because I'm curious, sometimes, when you don't see the behind the scenes, you don't realize that, there's these changes because all you're getting is solid teaching. Every time you're here, you're here to learn the next piece, and mm-hmm. we're trying, no matter, what we're teaching, to give you that best opportunity. So I'd be curious, have you noticed any changes good or bad. What's your opinions on that?
Yeah, we always take feedback. Pop it in the Q&A.
I would love it if you guys, left a comment, reached out to us on this episode just down below. What are some of your best memories from our old dojo if you did train there? If you have not trained with us, you're listening to this for the first time, have you had experience moving into a dojo as maybe another business owner? And what was that like for you, laying down the mats, getting in there, trying to get ready for your first classes? We'd love to hear your guys' stories relating to our move, your own move, and the memories that come with that.
Yeah. Kind of wrap it up here. I had a lot of fun. I'm glad to be getting back in. I will say that after the move, I am not going to miss the going to Lowe's or Home Depot 3 times in a single day because you always need to grab something else. I wish I had documented how many times I did that. Or any of us did it. It was probably...
I was always the one making lunch runs.
It was... Oh, man. I know I made several. I know Dan made several. We probably made double-digit trips in a single day grabbing, I need screws, I need this tool, I need that tool.
We would be around here working, and despite the fact there was usually a dozen people helping, there was usually only around 8 or 9 people here at once, because there was always someone off doing something.
Yeah, had to go grab something, right?
Anyway, stay tuned. Next week we'll probably have a guest on. We've got a few exciting episodes. We've got some more projects to talk about this season, more topics that we're interested in, and kind of give you some more behind the scenes of martial arts and teaching, some of the history of martial arts, as well as how to run a successful dojo. So make sure to share this with people who you think be interested. We'd love to kind of grow our reach and have even more people listening to us this year.
Yeah, give us a like, leave a comment. All those things help out. We would greatly appreciate it. Just kind of get the word out, and we enjoy doing it. So.
Absolutely. But for now, sorry?
I was gonna end it. Sorry. Go for it.
Keep kicking
for a living.